Millionaire's dark secret revealed. The shocking fall that changed everything. The early morning light spilled through the towering glass windows of a sprawling mansion perched high above the Pacific Ocean. The air was filled with the subtle scent of saltwater carried by the ocean breeze, but the tranquility outside sharply contrasted with the tension brewing within. Ethan Carter, a tall, broad-shouldered man with neatly combed dark hair streaked with gray, stood in his opulent living room. His navy blue suit was perfectly pressed, and his polished leather shoes clicked softly against the marble floor as he paced. The Carter mansion was the epitome of luxury. Vaulted ceilings adorned with crystal chandeliers, walls lined with abstract art, and a grand piano sitting in the corner of the room. Yet, for all its grandeur, there was an unmistakable emptiness in the air. Ethan's piercing blue eyes, once filled with ambition and drive, now seemed shadowed by exhaustion. His wife, Rachel, entered the room holding a steaming cup of coffee. Her soft brown hair framed her face, and her casual yet elegant outfit reflected her calm demeanor. But today, her expression was far from serene. She stood by the doorway, observing Ethan as he hastily reviewed papers spread across the sleek glass table. "You've been working too much," she said, her voice tinged with both concern and frustration. "The kids barely see you, Ethan. You're always buried in meetings, deals, and projects." Ethan paused, turning to face her. He forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Rachel, you know how important this is. I'm securing our future. Just a little longer, and things will settle down." Rachel sighed, setting the coffee down on the table. "You've been saying that for years. At what cost, Ethan? Tyler and Emily are growing up without you, and I feel like I've already lost you to this empire of yours." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his frustration simmering. "I'm doing this for all of us," he said firmly, though doubt flickered in his tone. "Once I close this deal, everything will change." Rachel didn't respond. Instead, she picked up her cup and walked away, leaving Ethan alone with his papers and his thoughts. Ethan's days were a blur of phone calls, meetings, and contract negotiations. His construction company had risen to become one of the most successful in the country, making him a millionaire by the time he was 40. Now at 45, he was on the verge of expanding internationally, a move that would cement his legacy. But as his business soared, his personal life unraveled. That morning, as he sat in his office overlooking the glittering Pacific, his phone rang incessantly. His assistant, Claire, knocked softly on the door before stepping in. A petite woman with short blonde hair and a no-nonsense attitude, Claire managed Ethan's chaotic schedule with precision. "Mr. Carter," she said, holding a tablet. "Mark Benson and Daniel Woods have requested another meeting to finalize the details for the Greenview project." Ethan frowned, leaning back in his chair. Mark and Daniel, his longtime business partners, had been unusually insistent about this project. Their frequent, secretive meetings without him had raised red flags, but Ethan brushed off his suspicions. "Tell them I'll join the call in an hour." Claire hesitated, then added, "The auditors also flagged some unusual transactions in the company accounts. Should I have them investigate further?" Ethan waved her off. "It's probably nothing. I'll look into it later." As the day wore on, Ethan's unease grew. Mark and Daniel were eager to push the Greenview deal forward, their urgency bordering on desperation. Something about their demeanor didn't sit right with Ethan, but he dismissed the thought. Trust was the cornerstone of their partnership, at least that's what he believed. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan returned home to find Rachel and the kids in the living room. Tyler, a lanky teenager with unruly brown hair, sat with his headphones on, engrossed in his phone. Emily, his younger sister, was curled up on the couch with a book. Rachel glanced up from her seat, her expression unreadable. "You're home early," she remarked. Ethan loosened his tie and collapsed into an armchair. "I wanted to spend some time with you all," he said, though the words felt hollow. The truth was, he needed a break from the mounting tension at work. Emily brightened, setting her book aside. "Can we play a game, Dad?" Before Ethan could respond, Tyler muttered, He'll probably say he's too busy. The comment stung, but Ethan forced a chuckle. Not tonight, Tyler. Let's play. Rachel watched silently, her gaze softening as Ethan interacted with the kids. But even as the family shared a rare moment of laughter, an undercurrent of unease lingered in the air. The next morning began like any other. Ethan's alarm blared at 6 a.m., and he prepared for another day of work. But as he descended the grand staircase, the sound of the doorbell echoed through the mansion. A chill ran down his spine. Opening the door, Ethan froze. 3 police officers and 2 FBI agents stood on the marble steps, their faces grim. "Mr. Ethan Carter?" the lead agent asked, holding up a badge. "You're under arrest for financial fraud, money laundering, and corruption." The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. His vision blurred, and his mind raced. "There must be a mistake," he stammered. "I've done nothing wrong." The officers moved swiftly, placing him in handcuffs. Rachel appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale. "Ethan, what's going on?" she cried, clutching the railing. "Rachel, I don't know," Ethan shouted as he was led away. "I swear, this is a mistake." Tyler and Emily appeared behind their mother, their expressions ranging from confusion to horror. Emily began to cry, while Tyler's face hardened with anger. Neighbors gathered outside, their whispers and camera flashes adding to Ethan's humiliation. The man who once symbolized success was now paraded through his luxurious neighborhood in handcuffs. At the police station, Ethan sat in a sterile interrogation room under harsh fluorescent lights. Across from him, a detective laid out stacks of evidence: bank statements, offshore account records, and forged signatures. Ethan stared at the documents, his head spinning. "I didn't authorize any of this," he insisted. "Someone is framing me." The detective smirked. "Sure, Mr. Carter. That's what they all say." By the time Ethan was escorted to his cell, the gravity of his situation began to sink in. The life he had built was crumbling. His family, his career, and his freedom, everything was slipping away. Sitting on the cold metal cot, Ethan clenched his fists. He didn't know how, but he was determined to uncover the truth and clear his name. Little did he know, his journey had only just begun. The first night in jail was the longest of Ethan Carter's life. The cold, hard cot beneath him was a far cry from the luxurious bedding of his mansion. The dim, flickering light above cast eerie shadows on the cell walls, and the muffled sounds of the prison echoed through the corridors, distant murmurs, a clanging door, and the occasional bark of a guard's order. Ethan sat with his head in his hands, replaying the day's events. How had it come to this? He had spent his life building an empire, playing by the rules, or so he thought. But the evidence laid out by the FBI was damning. Millions funneled into offshore accounts, fraudulent transactions bearing his signature. None of it made sense. The next morning, he was brought to meet his lawyer, Michael Shaw. Young and sharp, with a determined gleam in his eyes, Michael had a reputation for taking on impossible cases. As he entered the cold, sterile meeting room, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. "Ethan," Michael began, setting a thick folder on the table. "This case is serious, very serious. The evidence against you is overwhelming. The authorities claim they've tracked fraudulent transactions directly to your accounts. They also have signed documents implicating you." Ethan shook his head vehemently. "It wasn't me, Michael. I don't know how those signatures got there, but I didn't sign anything. Someone's setting me up." Michael leaned back, studying Ethan carefully. "Do you have any idea who might want to do this? Someone with access to your finances or authority within your company?" Ethan hesitated. Mark Benson and Daniel Woods. The thought of his 2 trusted partners brought a bitter taste to his mouth. Could they have betrayed him? They had access to everything: bank accounts, contracts, financial documents. He remembered the secretive meetings, the sudden urgency with the Greenview project. The pieces began to fit together in his mind. "It has to be Mark and Daniel," Ethan said, his voice firm. "They've been acting strange for weeks, pushing deals without me, holding meetings behind closed doors. They're the only ones with the access and knowledge to pull this off." Michael nodded, scribbling notes. If that's the case, we'll need hard evidence. Do you have anything that ties them to the transactions? Ethan thought for a moment. Not directly, but there were employees, accountants, assistants who worked closely with them. Maybe they noticed something. Michael's pen paused. We'll need to track them down. If they're willing to testify, it could change everything. But this will take time, Ethan. And in the meantime, you're facing trial. Days turned into weeks, and the reality of prison began to weigh on Ethan. His family, once the center of his world, had grown distant. Rachel had stopped answering his calls, and Tyler and Emily hadn't visited since his arrest. The silence from home was deafening, each unanswered attempt a reminder of how far he had fallen. In the yard, surrounded by hardened inmates, Ethan kept to himself. He was an easy target, a former millionaire with no street smarts. The taunts came quickly. "Hey, Carter, how's life without your millions?" A gruff voice jeered one afternoon. Ethan ignored it, keeping his head down. But the sneers and shoves continued, chipping away at his composure. He was no longer the powerful man who commanded respect in boardrooms. Here, he was just another prisoner. One night, as he lay on the thin mattress in his cell, his cellmate spoke. Lucas was an older man with sharp gray eyes and a calm demeanor. A former lawyer, Lucas had been wrongfully imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. He had spent years studying the law, searching for a way to prove his innocence. "You don't belong here," Lucas said, his voice low but steady. Ethan glanced at him, surprised. "And you do," Lucas chuckled dryly. "Touché. But I've been here long enough to know when someone's been set up. You're too clean, too out of place." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Someone framed me. My partners. They orchestrated everything, but I can't prove it." Lucas leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "Then we'll prove it. You're not the first man to be betrayed by people you trusted. The system is flawed, but it can be navigated. You just need to outsmart them." For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope. "How?" Lucas smirked. "Leave that to me." Over the next few weeks, Lucas became both a mentor and an ally. He guided Ethan through the complexities of the legal system, teaching him how to spot flaws in the evidence and build a defense. Together, they pored over every detail of Ethan's case, searching for inconsistencies. Meanwhile, Michael worked tirelessly outside the prison walls. He tracked down former employees of Ethan's company, uncovering a trail of deception orchestrated by Mark and Daniel. One accountant, Sarah, came forward with critical information. "They pressured us to sign off on transactions we didn't understand," Sarah revealed during a meeting with Michael. "And they always insisted on using Ethan's name. I thought it was odd, but I didn't question it. They're powerful men." Sarah's testimony, combined with Michael's relentless pursuit of evidence, began to unravel the web of lies. Bank records showed money flowing into accounts linked to Mark and Daniel, while emails and memos painted a clear picture of their conspiracy. Back in prison, Ethan's transformation was evident. He spent hours in the library, studying law books and preparing for his defense. The once broken man now carried himself with a quiet determination. Lucas watched him with approval. "You're learning. But remember, this isn't just about proving your innocence. It's about reclaiming your life." Ethan nodded, his jaw set. "I'll do whatever it takes." The day of the preliminary hearing finally arrived. Ethan was escorted from his cell to the courthouse, his heart pounding. Dressed in a plain suit, he looked every bit the man determined to clear his name. As he entered the courtroom, he saw them, Mark and Daniel, sitting smugly at their table. The sight of their arrogance fueled Ethan's resolve. Michael stood beside him, his voice steady. "This is just the beginning, Ethan. But we have a solid case. Trust me." Ethan met Michael's gaze, his determination unwavering. "Let's bring them down." As the hearing began, the weight of the betrayal that had nearly destroyed him no longer felt insurmountable. For the first time, Ethan believed he could win. The fight for his freedom and his family had only just begun. The courtroom was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Ethan Carter sat beside his lawyer, Michael Shaw, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Across the room, Mark Benson and Daniel Woods appeared calm, their smug expressions barely hiding the unease in their eyes. They still believed they held the upper hand, but Michael had meticulously built a case that would expose their betrayal. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. The trial began with opening statements, each side presenting their narrative. Ethan's defense was clear. He had been framed by the very men he trusted most. Michael outlined the evidence they had gathered: financial transactions, witness testimonies, and correspondence that painted a damning picture of Mark and Daniel's scheme. The prosecution, representing Mark and Daniel, tried to paint Ethan as the mastermind behind the fraud. Their argument was bolstered by the forged documents and fraudulent transactions that bore Ethan's name. The prosecution's case was strong, but Michael knew the cracks in their story would soon become evident. The first day of testimonies was grueling. Former employees of Ethan's company were called to the stand, their statements revealing the pressure and manipulation they had experienced under Mark and Daniel's direction. Sarah, the brave accountant who had come forward, delivered a powerful testimony. "They instructed us to forge signatures and move funds to offshore accounts," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "When I questioned it, they told me Ethan had approved everything. But I never saw him involved, not once." Michael leaned forward. "And did you report this to anyone?" Sarah hesitated. "I didn't. I was scared. They threatened my job and my reputation." Her words struck a chord with the jury. Michael's cross-examination was precise, painting a clear picture of the manipulation and fear Mark and Daniel used to orchestrate their scheme. Ethan's turn on the stand was the most challenging. Michael had prepared him extensively, but the prosecution's questions were sharp, designed to provoke and discredit him. "Mr. Carter," the prosecutor began, "how do you explain your signature on multiple documents authorizing these transactions?" Ethan took a deep breath. "I can't explain it because I didn't sign them. Those signatures were forged." The prosecutor smirked. "Convenient, isn't it? You claim innocence, yet your name appears on every incriminating document." Ethan's voice grew firmer. "It's not convenient. It's the truth. I trusted Mark and Daniel implicitly. They had access to everything. I never imagined they'd use that trust to frame me." The prosecution pressed further, but Ethan held his ground. His honesty and composure began to sway the jury, chipping away at the narrative Mark and Daniel had constructed. The turning point came on the third day of the trial when Michael presented the financial records. He meticulously traced the flow of money from Ethan's company to offshore accounts controlled by Mark and Daniel. The evidence was irrefutable. To solidify the case, Michael called an expert witness, a forensic accountant who testified about the inconsistencies in the company's financial records. These transactions were deliberately structured to appear legitimate, the expert explained, pointing to a detailed chart. But closer analysis shows clear evidence of forgery and misrepresentation. The funds were funneled through accounts linked directly to Mr. Benson and Mr. Woods. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as the evidence piled up. Mark and Daniel's confident facade began to crack. Their lawyers grew visibly tense, realizing the case was slipping out of their control. The final blow came with the testimony of another former employee, a junior assistant named Greg. Nervous but determined, Greg revealed a crucial piece of information. Mark and Daniel had a private office where they held meetings Ethan wasn't invited to, Greg said, his voice shaking slightly. "I overheard them talking about shifting funds and covering their tracks. They laughed about how easy it would be to pin everything on Ethan." Michael seized the moment. "And why are you coming forward now?" Greg's eyes met Ethan's. "Because it's the right thing to do. Ethan doesn't deserve this." By the time the closing arguments were made, the tide had turned. Michael's presentation was clear, concise, and powerful. He emphasized the betrayal Ethan had suffered, the manipulation of evidence, and the courage of those who had come forward to speak the truth. The prosecution, on the other hand, struggled to maintain their case. The weight of the evidence against Mark and Daniel was overwhelming, leaving little room for doubt. The jury deliberated for hours, but when they returned, their verdict was unanimous. Ethan Carter was found not guilty on all charges. The courtroom erupted in whispers as the judge declared the case against Ethan dismissed. The relief on Ethan's face was palpable. But justice didn't end there. Mark and Daniel were immediately arrested, charged with conspiracy, fraud, and forgery. Their fall from grace was swift and brutal, their once respected reputations now tarnished beyond repair. Back at his mansion, Ethan sat in the living room, staring out at the Pacific Ocean. The house felt emptier than ever, the silence a stark reminder of everything he had lost. Rachel and the kids had stayed away throughout the trial, unable to face the public scrutiny. Ethan knew he couldn't blame them, but the absence of his family weighed heavily on him. A knock at the door startled him. He opened it to find Rachel standing there, her expression a mix of hesitation and determination. "I saw the news," she said softly. "I know you were innocent." Ethan's voice wavered. "Rachel, I never stopped fighting for us. I just hope it's not too late." She stepped inside, her eyes scanning the home they had once shared. "It's going to take time, Ethan. For me, for the kids. But I think we can try." In the months that followed, Ethan focused on rebuilding his life. He started a foundation to help others who had been wrongfully accused, using his story as a beacon of hope. His work brought him a sense of purpose he had never known, and slowly, his family began to heal. Rachel and the kids visited more often, their laughter gradually filling the once empty halls. Tyler, who had been the most distant, began opening up, asking Ethan about his foundation and the people it helped. Emily, ever the optimist, eagerly pitched ideas for community projects. Ethan knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face it with gratitude and determination. His fall had been devastating, but his journey of redemption was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As he stood on the balcony one evening, watching the sunset over the ocean, Ethan felt a sense of peace. He had lost everything but found something far more valuable: a renewed sense of purpose and the chance to rebuild the life that truly mattered. Ethan Carter's story is a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of integrity, even in the face of life's harshest trials. Betrayed by those he trusted most, stripped of his reputation, and distanced from his family, Ethan could have succumbed to despair. Instead, he found the strength to fight for justice, reclaim his name, and rebuild his life, not just for himself, but for others who had been wronged. Through his journey, Ethan learned that true wealth isn't measured in dollars or possessions, but in relationships, purpose, and the ability to make a difference in the world. By creating his foundation, he turned his personal tragedy into a mission of hope, showing us all that even in the darkest times, there's a way forward. This story reminds us that redemption isn't just about proving your innocence. It's about rediscovering what truly matters. It's about love, family, and the courage to start anew. Ethan's transformation teaches us that our past does not define us. It's how we rise after the fall that truly matters. Now it's your turn to reflect. Have you ever faced a challenge that tested your strength and values? How did you find the courage to overcome it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story. If Ethan's journey inspired you, make sure to subscribe to KNH Video for more incredible stories of resilience, hope, and transformation. Don't forget to hit the like button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Before you go, type hope in the comments if you believe in second chances and the power of perseverance. Together, let's create a community that uplifts and inspires one another. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more unforgettable stories that touch the heart and ignite the spirit. Your next favorite story is just one click away. The early morning sunlight streamed through the glass windows of Ethan Carter's sprawling mansion perched high above the Pacific Ocean. A millionaire at 40, Ethan had achieved unparalleled success in the construction industry, building an empire of luxury and influence. Yet, behind the crystal chandeliers and vaulted ceilings of his opulent home, trouble brewed. Ethan stood in his immaculate living room, his dark hair streaked with gray and his tailored suit pressed to perfection. His polished shoes clicked against the marble floor as he paced, reviewing documents spread across a sleek glass table. The once ambitious glint in his piercing blue eyes was replaced with exhaustion and unease. His wife, Rachel, entered, her soft brown hair framing her elegant yet casual demeanor. "You've been working too much," she said, concern lacing her tone. "The kids barely see you anymore. It feels like I've already lost you to this empire of yours." Ethan forced a smile. "This deal will secure our future, Rachel. Just a little longer." But even as he said the words, doubt flickered in his voice. Rachel sighed and walked away, leaving Ethan to his thoughts. His life seemed perfect, an enviable career, a beautiful family, and wealth beyond measure. But the cracks were beginning to show. His children, Tyler and Emily, grew distant, and his trusted business partners, Mark Benson and Daniel Woods, were acting suspiciously. The Greenview project they pushed with urgency raised red flags, but Ethan ignored them. Trust, he believed, was the foundation of his success. Until the morning everything unraveled. As Ethan descended the grand staircase, a knock echoed through the mansion. Opening the door, he was confronted by FBI agents with grim expressions. "Ethan Carter, you're under arrest for financial fraud, money laundering, and corruption," the lead agent declared. Ethan's world collapsed in an instant. Rachel stood frozen at the top of the stairs, clutching the railing as their children watched in horror. The neighbors gathered, whispering and snapping photos as the man once lauded as a titan of industry was led away in handcuffs. In the sterile walls of the interrogation room, Ethan faced the weight of accusations backed by damning evidence. Offshore accounts, forged signatures, and fraudulent transactions in his name. "This is a mistake," he protested. "I've done nothing wrong." The detective smirked. "That's what they all say." As Ethan sat in a cold prison cell that night, the full gravity of his fall set in. Betrayed, humiliated, and isolated, he vowed to uncover the truth. Little did he know, his journey had just begun. What would you do if everything you built came crashing down? Stay tuned to discover Ethan's incredible journey of betrayal, resilience, and redemption. Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories of hope and transformation. Type HOPE in the comments if you believe in second chances.